this year Google search because there's way too many stories to choose from. Here's from The Advocate. Project 2025 is real and coming, says Trumper Matt Walsh. MAGA says Project 2025 is the agenda, Matt Walsh. Rolling Stone, Republicans celebrate by admitting they can't wait for Project 2025. Newsweek, what do we have? Mother Jones, after win, Trump fans admit Project 2025 is the agenda. The Independent, MAGA allies say they can finally admit Project 2025. Axios, I mean, these are supposed to be serious news organizations, and they saw a joke from Matt Walsh and decided it is the biggest story, it's true, and run with it.
Well, and not only that, but I'm not a Trump official. I'm not going to be in the cabinet. I would love to be in the cabinet. I mean, call me up. I'll take the job, whatever it is. But I'm just the fact that you can make an article over some podcaster who's just rambling and joking around is the most absurd thing about it. I mean, it's like...
Well, and it's not just that you're not a Trump official. It's that you are somebody who has now made 2 documentaries where you're trolling people. And in your profile picture on Twitter, you are dressed as the character you troll people as. And somebody saw a tweet from you, which was an obvious troll, and they took the bait and wrote articles about it.
Yeah, it is amazing. But also on the left, they've just lost their ability to detect irony or...
they had the ability to detect irony.
Well,
I mean, I assume at some point in the past they did.
Well, I gotta be honest. They want to be victims.
No. I don't think they do. I do think there's an element of the media that says, "Hey, I know he didn't mean it. He's joking, but we can run the story because you can't sue for defamation because they'll say, but he really said it."
Yeah.
I genuinely believe there's a natural filtration process happening over the past 10 years for people who lack the mental capacity to understand humor and think beyond one dimension.
Well, that'll happen. Like I will sometimes have people try to fact check my cartoons. It's like, okay.
Right.
Can we see the tweet?
When I tweeted that Kamala Harris was Hitler, Stalin, and Mussolini combined, and she was going to send Trumpers to camps and start 800 new wars, and a bunch of articles got written being like, Tim Pool thinks Kamala Harris is going to be like, I was literally satiring you.
Yeah.
But their brains are just made of jello, so...
And they also, but some of it is internet too. Like it's not all on the left. Some of it is on the internet. It's a thing where they just pretend they've never heard of the concept of hyperbole, or comedic hyperbole is a really common device that people use in their everyday lives. Even something like, I'm starving. It's like, you're not. It's like no one thinks that you're actually claiming that you're starving to death. You're just saying that you're really hungry. And so and this happens to me all the time. I'll say something like, whatever. If you drink, people who drink raw milk should go to jail or something. and then
the anime one's funny.
And then you have a 3-day outrage cycle. People on the right too, pretending that they don't understand that you're intentionally exaggerating just to be funny.
Well,
so
one of my favorites was JD Vance was talking in some interview, and he said, "Look, my 2 sons eat like a dozen eggs a day, right? And so when you're a family and you're going to the grocery store, and then some journalist wrote." There is no way that J.D. Vance's children are eating like 144 eggs per week. That's ridiculous. And then he was just like, are you kidding me?
It's like fact check.
I'm so hungry I could eat a horse. Fact check. He did not, in fact, want to eat a horse.
It's like fact check. J.D. Vance's children do not get taller every time their grandmother sees them. Like, right. People say things sometimes.
Well, technically, they do get taller each time.
That's true, actually, but probably not notably.
Yeah.
Well, it is missing context. Well, it is true that they technically get taller. It would not be possible to notice.
I think the media industry attracts low IQ people. Having worked in some of these offices in New York and in the corporate press, I would find that only a small handful of the people who worked there actually had 100 or above in IQs. And I know this because I actually physically administered the test. No, I have no idea. But I met so many of these young people who were just like, when you talk to them, it was as if it was a phone dial tone. It was just, they're staring at you. There's this thing for some of these people where they're looking at you, but they're looking through you.
Yeah.
Like you can tell like your eyes are not focused on me. And I'm like, is there anything in there? Is anybody home?
And they're the worst kinds of dumb people. I think this is kind of the definition of a midwit, where they're above room temperature in their IQ, but they're definitely not smart, but they think they're smart. Right, so they're pretty dumb, but they think they're really smart. And that's all the media. There's been all this conversation in the media after the election about how Trump's voters are uneducated because they didn't go to college. And so you get all these pompous, people with college degrees saying, well, you guys aren't educated. You're not as smart as me. And of course, it's like, and this is part of it. You can be a very dumb person these days and have not just a college degree, but have like a PhD. You could have gone to 10 years of post high school education and actually be barely above 100 with your IQ. And so that's one of the reasons why these people are so confident of their own intelligence, I think.
And then, I mean, even the ones who get advanced degrees in fields that have traditionally been considered impressive will tell you that men can get pregnant. I mean, it doesn't mean anything anymore.
That's the funny thing, yeah. So following the election, the metric comes out that the blue states are all college educated and the red states tend to not be college educated. And then you get it's fascinating to me. I love this because these liberals will respond to political positions I have with Tim never graduated high school. And then they're like, oh, like for liberals, like, well, that settles it. Tim didn't get a high school degree, therefore nothing he says has any merit. That is indicative of impaired brain function. Mm-hmm. And they view this world through, have you been approved by the establishment as acceptable? Like it's a form of credentialism. You have to have state-sanctioned confirmation of thought. Yep. And that's your degree, that's your diploma, and that proves you are capable regardless of your positions. So when it comes to this podcasting thing, especially where they say, I love this, the article yesterday or 2 days ago from Wired, where it said, the manosphere won. The left needs it's like the left doesn't even have a Steven Crowder, Ben Shapiro, or so help us a Tim Pool. And it's funny because just like with Joe Rogan, they did. Many of these former liberals are now sitting here voting for Donald Trump. But these people's position is, you are smart and acceptable if you march with us in lockstep, no matter what we say. And I'm like, my guys, when you said we need a Joe Rogan, why don't Democrats have a Joe Rogan? The response from people was, you did. His name was Joe Rogan. The issue is the Democrats were crapping on the floor in front of everybody and telling us we had to accept it. And when we said, please don't make this what the Democrats represent, they said, you're far right, you're a conservative. And I said, well, I guess I am now, because I'm not okay with you taking a dump on the floor.
Yeah, the thing about the Joe Rogan thing, too, is really funny to me, because they don't understand at all. This is why they'll never have their own Joe Rogan, is they just don't understand at all why he's popular or how he got to the place that he is. And he didn't get there with by being known as this Republican guy who's making Republican points. I mean, like many people, I started listening to Joe Rogan certainly at first because he'd have on whatever, like archaeologists, and they would talk about that for 3.5 hours. I mean, it's the stuff that had nothing to do with politics that made him super popular. And then from there, he started getting in a little bit more to politics, but even now, not all that much. And this is the problem. So on the left, if they tried to do their own Joe Rogan, it would just be some leftist droning on about leftist policy for 3.5 hours. And that's just not, that's not a Democrat answer to Joe Rogan.
And the issue is the amorphous nature of what is acceptable on the left. So I can sit here and be like, here are my beliefs, here are my values, here's what I want, here's what I don't want. And they will stay true for the most part until someone presents me with a good argument, and we'll have the discussion and the debate. And I might say, you know what, I'll consider that's interesting. The left is just like, well, today, Wimixin is the new word. And then the next day, they're like, actually, that's offensive because it's exclusionary. And they go, okay, now we're not going to say Wimixin. Now it's women with a Y. Well, also, you can't be a Joe Rogan because you'd have to have a list of all the things you can or can't say updated every day by the Democratic Party.
That's exactly right. And also, it seems really insulting to a lot of their media personalities to say this, right? Like, we don't have our own Steven Crowder. What about Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert? Like, just because they're not good doesn't mean they're not your attempt.
Well, I feel like
that's what they're saying, though.
What they're saying is they don't have the influence.
They're admitting their people suck.
Right? They don't have the influence, and the reason they don't have the influence is because they're woke scolds. They're telling people what they must say, what they must think, and as soon as you do something interesting, like have an opposing view or anything like that, anything approaching an opposing view, they excommunicate you.
And this is what I talk about all the time on the left, that they are now making the mistake, especially when it comes to entertainment. You mentioned Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert, perfect examples of this. They are now making the mistake that for so long conservatives and particularly Christian media and entertainment made, which is that they lead with the only thing that matters is the message. The whole thing is just the message.
Yeah.
And so you'll have Jimmy Kimmel who will get up and he'll give what's supposed to be a comedy monologue, but it's just 10 minutes of him crying because he lost the election. And it's just like, your job is to be funny. And so if you want to have influence, Jimmy Kimmel, you actually want to influence people towards your point of view, then you should come out and just be funny, and you sprinkle in the politics here and there. And it's the thing, the left for so long, they were very good at this. They were very good at influencing the culture, influencing people, because they were good comedians, they were good artists, they made good films, they made good shows, and they didn't lead with the message. They led with the story, they led with the joke, and they would sprinkle in the politics here and there. They'd make it a little bit subtle, so they were just kind of gradually moving you towards their values without you noticing it. And now it's kind of, and then you had the Christian answer, which was always just, well, we're going to do this movie, and it's the acting's terrible, the writing's terrible, everything's terrible, but it's a really good sermon, and they're talking about loving Jesus.
Good fundamentals.
Right. And now this interesting shift is happening where the left is making that mistake, and the right is figuring out how to not really lead with the message, just be interesting, be funny. I mean, Joe Rogan is it's an interesting guy, sprinkles in the politics here and there, and that's how you have actual influence.
And they called him alt-right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No one is just on the right. Like, as soon as you cross over that line, you're a Nazi.
You're far
it's
right.
Like, there was a time when you used to have to be conservative to be considered far right. Like, as long as you're a center left liberal, you're far right. But I just want to make this point about culture. At Freedom Tunes, whenever we make these cartoons, like, if we have an idea that's going to make fun of a Republican, or if we have a funny plan, a conservative idea, we're not like, oh, we can't do that because we need to win. Like, you make
fun of Trump all the time.
I make fun of Trump all the time. I literally had, I don't know if I can just, well, I happened in the video, but I had something happen to you in a video recently.
Oh, right. Well, we also did a video a while ago where
I make fun of you a lot.
Fauci. So Seamus and I did a video where it's Fauci and Trump, and Fauci's testifying. And it starts with the Lord of the Rings scene where he was like, I was there the day the strength of Trump failed. And then Fauci's like, cast it into the fire, Trump destroys the coronavirus.
Yeah,
and then Trump is like, well, I was gonna, but now that you told me to, I won't do it. And it's like, it's making fun of Trump and Fauci and everybody just for fun.
Well, and even like we did, I remember a while ago just doing a silly video where it was like, college student like totally owns Ben Shapiro, and it's like a college student that with like they them pronouns or whatever. Yeah, exactly. It's like it's okay, and it's actually good to make fun of people on your own side, and it's good to even make fun of some of the ideas on your own side.
I think we see all of this stuff, and it shows it's I don't know, it's communism, right? You can't defy the party line.
Yeah, exactly.
And so what do we see in communist countries? You can't have jokes. Jokes not allowed. Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.